English Education Early Literacy Assignment Submission. In this video, I will talk about what I've learnt about early literacy and how young children develop reading and writing skills. I'll share key ideas on the unit whilst reflecting on how these ideas connect to the Red Creek case study and how I would utilise them in my own teaching practices. In week 1, we focused on literacy theoretical perspectives. This week began by reflecting on our own early experiences with learning English. And for me, it was surprisingly difficult to recall exactly how I was first introduced to English, but I do remember that by middle school, it wasn't easy. I often found English quite challenging, partly because I couldn't connect it to my own interests. This learning felt disconnected from what I was curious about, which made it harder to stay engaged and motivated. This reflection has influenced how I want to approach literacy as a teacher by valuing and listening to student voice and ensuring that learning feels meaningful and connected to their experiences. When reading Seeley and Flint and the examples of different classrooms, I found myself most aligned with Miss Battle's classroom pedagogy. Her approach is grounded in psycholinguistic theory and the whole language model, which really resonated with me. I like the way she immerses students in authentic, meaningful literacy experiences, where reading, writing, speaking, and listening are integrated rather than separated into isolated skills. The student-centred, inquiry-driven approach allows learners to make meaning from text, connect to their lives, and encourages them to see language as a tool for both thinking and communicating. At the same time, I also came to see the importance of not sticking rigidly to one approach. A workshop discussion showed that by drawing from multiple pedagogies is often more effective. Different students and contexts demand different strategies, and weaving elements from other theories can create a more balanced and inclusive learning environment. We were introduced to Elkonian boxes. I hadn't been exposed to them before, but I now see how valuable they can be for building phonemic awareness. From a cognitive perspective, they help students externalise the process of segmenting words into sounds, making phonemes visible and manipulatable. At the same time, the teacher's guidance reflects a socio-cultural perspective, scaffolding the task within the learner's zone of proximal development. Engaging with Fellows and Oakley's reading pointed out that explicit instruction in phonological awareness is important, but it should always be embedded in meaningful literacy context. If I imagine using Elkonian boxes in Red Creek classroom, I think they would be a really useful tool to support students across different literacy stages. For the reception students, I could be breaking down simple CVC words like cat or sun. Year 1 students could work on blends and digraphs, and Year 2 might tackle more complex words. I also think the hands-on visual nature of the activity would support the ILD students because it makes the sound symbol connection very concrete while encouraging oral language alongside print. Overall, while I strongly align with Miss Mitchell's whole language pedagogy, I can see the different benefit of integrating strategies like Elkonian boxes. This combination allows me to stay true to a holistic student-centred approach while still providing explicit, structured support where needed. This week's workshop on language experiences helped me see how authentic, creative activities can connect oral language, meaning-making, and literacy development. The most meaningful learning for me came from the character creation and creek storytelling task. We each designed a character, drew them, then took them to the creek on campus to photograph them in different scenes. Using those images, we began planning the story about our characters' adventures by the creek. This experience really showed how language grows from experience. As Fellows and Oakleys explains, oral language involves not just speaking, but making meaning through social interactions and context. By engaging with the sensory environment of the creek, we have a shared field of experience, talk about, describe, and later transform into a narrative. I recognise that the task fits within the building the field stage of the teaching and learning cycle described by Derelka and Jones. Building the field is about developing shared knowledge, vocabulary, and context before writing. Through the creek experience, we explored language that reflected narratives, discussed what our characters might do, and build a common understanding of setting and action, laying the groundwork for later when we were required to develop our own stories based on characters and setting. In the Red Creek school context, this approach would be highly effective. The natural surroundings like the creek and veggie garden provide authentic context for language learning, storytelling. For students from diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds, these shared experiences help create a common language foundation, linking oral storytelling to written expression. This aligns with the Australian curriculum, English, which integrates speaking, listening, viewing, reading and writing as interconnected literacy practices. Watching inquiry learning in play spaces reinforced for me how purposeful play and talk promote language growth. The teacher's use of open-ended questioning, modelling vocabulary, and encouraging sharing highlighted that children learn language best through meaningful engagement. At Red Creek School, I can see how these strategies would be highly effective, particularly in the multi-age I2 classroom. For example, reception students who are still developing English could engage in imaginative play in activity centres using story prompts or puppets to practice new vocabulary and sentence structures. Year 1 and Year 2 students could extend this by collaborating to sequence events from the play, retelling stories orally, or create written recounts drawing on their developing literacy skills. The classroom environment at Red Creek, with its multilingual signs, rich literacy resources and spaces for imaginative and construction play, supports these strategies perfectly. By embedding storytelling, discussion and play into both whole class and activity centre experiences, children are able to engage with language in meaningful and enjoyable ways. This approach not only develops their vocabulary, sentence structures and comprehension skills, but also promotes engagement, confidence and a sense of ownership over their learning, supporting all students regardless of age or ability. Overall, this workshop deepens my understanding that language experiences are central to literacy learning. When students engage in shared creative contexts, like our quick story task, they are not only practicing language, they are using it to think, connect and create meaning. One of the most significant moments in our writing workshop for me was when our group worked together to classify a set of student writing samples according to the phases of writing development. This task really deepened my understanding of how children progress as writers. Using the template provided in the workshop and information from Fellows and Oakley on young children and writing, we analysed children's work samples and discussed where the child might sit developmentally. What stood out to me was that while writing development progresses through clear stages, students often show skills from multiple stages, simultaneously or may be in one stage while beginning to work on aspects of the next. The framework helped us recognise that each stage involves different key learning areas, from developing fine motor control and phonemic awareness to understanding audience and purpose. This exercise also made me reflect on how teachers at Red Creek School might use similar tools to differentiate instruction. In Ms. Becker's R2 class, for example, some reception children are just beginning to form letters, while Year 2 students are experimenting with simple sentences. Understanding where each child sits developmentally allows the teacher to scaffold support through modelled and shared writing for beginning writers and guided and independent writing for those in the transitional phase. According to Fellows and Oakley, writing development is not a linear process, but a dynamic one, influenced by each child's experiences, oral language and exposure to meaningful literacy tasks. Overall, the workshop helped me understand that writing development is a social and iterative process. It thrives when students are given time, purpose and voice. For me, the biggest takeaway was that teaching writing isn't just about teaching and correcting editorial conventions, it's about creating a community of writers where every child sees themselves as an author with something valuable to say. As Celia and Flint remind us, when teaching focuses only on teaching technical accuracy, creativity and engagement can be stifled. Effective writing instruction should instead prioritise meaning making, audience awareness and authentic communication within a supportive classroom. Applying this understanding to the Red Creek School context, I would implement a differentiated and inquiry-based approach to writing instruction, recognising that students move fluidly across phases of writing development. The teaching would provide multiple entry points for learners to engage meaningfully with written language. Beginning and emergent writers might use drawing, oral storytelling, while teacher scribes, or shared writing before transitioning to independent attempts, while transitional and fluent writers could engage in peer editing, genre exploration, and digital publishing to extend their skills. By fostering collaboration authentically and culturally responsive tasks, I would support all students in developing as confident, reflective, and engaged writers. In week 4's workshop, we explored modelled, shared, guided and independent reading strategies. Using Where the Wild Things Are as our mentor text, we mapped the text structure, identifying the orientation, series of events, complications and how they were resolved. This activity helped me understand how children organise their reading experiences and develop comprehension. Using Hooped on the Floor to sort events and discuss complications allowed us to engage with the story as active participants rather than passive readers. I can easily see myself using this hands-on technique in my future classroom to support students' understanding of story structure and meaning. This task highlighted how reading development involves multiple interconnected skills, as Fellows and Oakley emphasise children develop language comprehension, vocabulary, phonological awareness and decoding abilities at different stages from effective reading instruction must integrate these elements. What stood out for me was seeing how guided reading, when informed by assessment, can be used to differentiate instruction to meet the diverse needs of learners. For example, in the guided reading videos we watched, the teacher worked with small groups based on ability, providing targeted support while allowing other students to work independently or collaboratively. I also noticed the importance of connecting reading tasks to children's prior knowledge and lived experiences, which strengthens meaning making and engagement. The mapping activity in the workshop mirrored this as we drew on our own experiences and perspectives to respond to the text. It made me reflect on the 4 resources model from Luke and Threebody, which frames students as code breakers, text users, text participants, and text analysts, all roles that need to be explicitly taught and supported. At Red Creek School, where the junior primary classes include children with diverse backgrounds, these approaches are particularly relevant. I would use shared reading, guided reading groups, and daily read alouds to create multiple entry points for children to engage with text at their level. For instance, when beginning readers might participate through picture walks, predictions and oral retelling, while more advanced readers can focus on comprehension, vocabulary and text analysis. Having this set up in the classroom as a rotation system would work well, where the teacher could be providing explicit teaching to a small group while other students participate in other activities relating to the independent task. One of the most significant takeaways for me from the Week 5 workshop was revisiting the teaching and learning cycle and recognising how each stage works together to scaffold students developing control of language and genre. Derwinkin Jones described the cycle as a sequence of interrelated phases: building the field, modelling and deconstruction, joint construction and independent use of the genre, which positions the teacher and learner in a dynamic relationship that supports gradual independence. Reflecting on my placement, I noticed that much of my teaching instinctively followed the gradual release of responsibility model, the I do, we do, you do, and you do it alone sequence. Revisiting the teaching and learning cycle helped me see how this aligns with explicit teaching and scaffolding practices, deliberately shifting responsibility from teacher to student. Another key insight was the role of extended classroom talk in enriching students' engagement with text. Purposeful talk, as Edwards Groves explains through talk moves and dialogic teaching, provides opportunities for students to clarify, extend and challenge ideas. By revoicing, prompting reasoning and allowing wait time, teachers build a shared space for co-constructed meaning, supporting all learners, including those who are developing English proficiency. Linking this to MacDonald's concepts of reader repertoires, I realised how classroom talk can activate students' personal, social, cultural and literary knowledge. Students at Red Creek might draw on their personal repertoires when connecting text to their own experiences, their social repertoire through shared community context, and their cultural repertoire through unique perspectives, and their literary repertoire in understanding text structures and language features shared in the classroom. Encouraging these repertoires allows students to express authentic emotional responses, whether curiosity, empathy or reflection, which deepens comprehension and engagement. If I were Miss Becker teaching in the Red Creek 2 classroom, I would draw on the teaching and learning cycle to scaffold literacy for all students. During the building the field stage, I would provide multimodal and shared experiences such as shared reading and read alouds, talking and taking the opportunity to explore the natural environment of the school, including the Greek and oral discussions that follow. Connect students' backgrounds, interests and community. I would differentiate tasks, so reception, students engage through drawing, oral, storytelling and short sentence writing. With sentence starters, Year 1 students could sequence events using pictures, and building more complex sentences, and Year 2 students could work on mastering building these complex sentence structures and even start writing structured paragraphs. Overall, this week reinforced that the teaching and learning cycle is far more than a planning tool. It's a pedagogical framework grounded in interaction, scaffolding and dialogic learning. By drawing on students' repertoires, supporting emotional and cultural connections and implementing gradual release, teachers can cultivate critical and creative readers and writers to engage deeply with literature and language, even in multi-age, culturally rich classrooms like Red Creek.